Hey everybody, Tyler Williams is back on the podcast. This is Brendan Hauser with EVOQ Bike. For a few of you that might not know Tyler, Tyler's raced around the world when he was on Israel Cycling Academy before COVID, then came back to the US, was ripping with the Legion guys when they were winning everything. He shifted to go to the NCL, and this is an interesting part of the podcast where he talks about what happened when everything crumbled and what do you do when you're driving on I-5 and you're thinking, okay, is this the end? He really talks about how to make it and thrive as a cyclist in the American cycling scene right now, and the good and the bad and the ugly and everything in between. We, of course, get into the details beyond the state of cycling, his training, what he's doing, how he's continually trying to get better. And I also want to highlight the sponsor of this episode real quickly, Bicycle. It's BUYCYCLE.com. Will and I have both sold bikes on this website. The number one thing that I loved is they actually give you the shipping materials to send the bike. I hate going to the bike shop, asking for boxes, looking for wheel boxes. It's just a pain that I don't like dealing with. And then I'm on a marketplace online where I'm just texting people, and the payments sometimes, did they actually pay me? Got to go through Venmo. If you're the buyer, there's buyer protection, secure payments, simple shipping, and first-class customer service. So there's actually someone to hit up if things are going awry. There's over 20,000 pre-owned bikes, everything from road, gravel, mountain, tri bikes, and it's just a really simple, safe, easy way to do this. Click on the link below if you want to get 0% seller fee. And everybody, thanks for checking out the podcast. Good luck with your training and racing. Tyler, thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate your candor, and we'll talk to you guys soon. See ya. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. Thanks. Well, we've been trying to catch up for a minute, but yeah.
It's been a minute, but it was a great comment that you had that kind of sparked this again. I feel like I've lived a million lives since then. And that was what, 2021?
Yeah. We were just getting back to racing, so yeah, I feel like there's been some things go on for sure. Learning.
It was hilarious because one of the clips we had posted, if people go and listen to the full podcast, it's you really talking about Zwift racing and the concept of, I hope to get back on the road sometime. The fact that that was a reality of when are we racing outside again, I have completely forgotten about, and that jogged my memory. I was like, oh, I hope that never happens again. That was kind of dark days.
Yeah, it was dark. I don't know, like back then I only had one kid. He was probably like 4 or 5 months when we did that podcast. So now I have 2 children, and I think back to like those COVID days when all I had to do was, well, even before Theo was born, and all I had to do was just ride my bike, only because I wanted to, even at that point, and we were racing Zwift, but I could just ride my bike and play video games and not really care. And I'm like, man, that was a simple time. But obviously I'm much happier out on the road racing in real life and not virtually, because at the end of that I was fairly burnt out with racing on Zwift. So yeah, it was good to get back to real racing.
I'm curious, what's now changed from having 2 kids? The kids are now, so what, 3? How are
3 and 2? Okay. Yeah, 3.5 and 2.
I think that this will resonate for a ton of people, because so many athletes are, oh man, what do I do now? How's that played out?
I think for the longest time, I'm not trying to make excuses for myself, but I think for the longest time, I think I was like, oh, this isn't really affecting me more than just having one. But I think at some level, for me, it's just harder to sustain like that top end performance. Having 2 kids, you just don't recover the same. Like if you have one kid, I think now, like if I ever have just one of them, it feels so quiet and simple versus having both of them just being crazy all the time. And I think like the background noise of just having kids is busy and stressful. So yeah, it's not, I make it work pretty well, and I'm pretty lucky to, be able to sustain it the way I do, but it is a challenge. Even if you feel like you kind of have it together, it's still like taxing no matter what. You just don't have the recovery in the same way. I think I probably train. I don't probably train quite as much as I did in 21. I'm not far off at all, but I feel like probably I lack some of that quality just because I have other stuff going on, or I get home and yeah, it's just a challenge, and like there's kind of no way around it.
Mm-hmm. I think 2021, you made the comment you felt really good, like 20 to 22 ish hours. Where do you think you're at now per week?
Probably like 2 hours less than that.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Can you tell
yeah.
a difference between that, like 17, 18, 20, 21?
Then yeah, I mean, I'd say right now I'm probably like 19 to 20. Like
Okay.
I feel, and I could still get up to 21, 22. It just takes more discipline to do it. I think I just tell the difference in the recovery more, and just like the amount of quality I'm able to do because of the recovery, I think is where I probably lack. It's not so much even being able to do the hours. It's
Mm.
just like the quality of those hours. I probably feel like are like 5% less, and I'd say maybe I noticed that a bit.
When you say discipline, that's an interesting topic. What would you have to be more disciplined on in order to get better recovery or to make the hours more quality?
Uh, so like a good example of this because I was working with the junior team like right before I left on this trip, and um I was talking to them about just take like your 20 minutes at the end of the day to do your stretching and your foam rolling and stuff like that, and I do not ever do that anymore like I should. Like I get to 8:30 at night, and the last thing I'll get down on the floor with my foam roller, and then I pretty much just like lay down on the floor with my foam roller. I don't ever do any of that stuff. So I think like there's definitely those things of just like yeah, just like taking that little bit of time to do the foam rolling and the stretching, probably a little more core, especially because I'm getting older. And just like, yeah, those details are like, I'm kind of bad about like snacking on their snacks. Like, so I'll be eating some Cheez-Its or some goldfish. And I know I feel so bad after I do that, just like with the processed food. And if I don't do it, like, yeah, I feel better. So it's just like those little things. And is like, is bad of a state as American cycling kind of is in right now, at least domestically, like the level is still higher than I think it's ever been, at least at the top end. Like the races are harder. So like I do feel like I need that to be, I can afford it in some ways, but yeah, it's just, you still notice it for sure.
Mm. When you say the bad state of U.S. cycling, how I think a lot of people things jump into their mind. How do you see it though? What's so negative or not great about it?
Well, I mean, I think that's the opportunity to actually race at like a professional level is nearly non-existent now, basically. I mean,
Mm.
you know, I've had a lot go on this year because had left Legion, gone to the NCL. The NCL was paying guys good salaries, and then that flopped. Yeah, before the season basically even started. I mean, like we were at Redlands on our own dime, and then the Monday after Redlands, we all found out we were fired. So, and then now I'm back in the WR Devo family. So like, I'm just like, but you know, you can't go to any organization in April and be like, hey, I want a salary again. So,
Mm-hmm.
there and even WR Devo has had a kind of had to cut back and scale back some stuff, and I think like especially the industry having to scale back. There's less races. We don't have Joe Martin anymore. He was been on life support. Redlands is the only race that I've at least noticed that hasn't really gone down in level, and even all the top level crits, like when I started doing crits in 19 and 21, like I would say almost every single one of them, the prize money has gone down $3,000, like
Wow.
almost per race. So, like Boise Twilight was 10,000 or 12,000 when I first did it, and now it's 7 or 6, and that's like even Tulsa Tough was like 10, 10, 12, 12 for the overall. Now it's like 8, 8, 10, 10 for the overall. So it's like all these races, everything is just scaling back. So it's just getting harder, I think. And yeah, it's not in a good state. We don't, and that trickles down. So then like you have less professional teams, which means you have less professional riders, like proper professional riders. So then you have more dangerous racing because there's just less experience and less. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like a bit of a snowball effect.
Mm. That snowball is interesting. Do you feel that it's going on the more dangerous racing? Because that I find interesting since you're someone at the top level that's done just massive races, been in crazy situations. I think some people might not think that you would notice that. It's more the people maybe back in the washing machine or how do you see the racing being more dangerous? People just doing crazy stuff, or lack of bike handling, or how do you see that?
So, yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like, I've crashed twice pretty badly here in the last month and a half, and both from like the first 7 wheels. So, the crashes are happening at the front too. I think a little bit of that is, yeah, I mean, it's just like the races are, I think in some way they're a little slower. So there's just more guys in the final to take the risk at the end because they can see the win. I think, like the Legion train, that everyone hated, we rode really fast. We were really strong. And so that kind of, there was a pecking order, and I do think that like kept the races safer in a lot of ways. Because in the end, like, we would go so fast for the last like 7-8 laps that there just was only so many people left that could even do anything. Those riders were generally really good. Yes, there's always going to be risks, and people have to take risks to win races, so I don't necessarily like expect it to go away ever. But yeah, I think it's just like it's been a big reshuffle in how domestic racing is going, and that the speeds are higher too, just with the technology and fitness levels. So like, on like the courses that we're riding, we're probably hitting the corners like 2 to 3K an hour faster than we would hit them before, just with like the technology and stuff like that. So I've never really, that's not something you would think about, but it's kind of a thing. So you actually have to ride the race slightly different too. Like a corner that might have been full gas is probably not full gas now, or something like that.
I think you bring up a good point. I had commented to somebody that I couldn't tell if it was just all these races seem faster or if the GoPro cameras are getting that much better. But some of these, I watch these videos and I do not want to be in that race. That is so frightening.
There's just more GoPro cameras too. You just get to see more because there's just more people with them. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that you commented in when we were talking on Instagram of just surviving in this industry. And you did a little reshuffle that you mentioned. Do you want to go in on that? I mean, that process and just, deciding to leave, go to the NCL, that flops. Like, how do you see yourself surviving moving forward, or just like,
Yeah. I
don't even know where to go with that comment.
Yeah, it's been a like really wild 12 months. Even longer than that. I think like I can kind of get into why I left a bit. Was like I had been with Legion since like basically the beginning. So, over that period, I think like everyone's relationships had just kind of changed, and it was just I was looking for more of a challenge as well, and I had a good offer with very good money to go to the NCL to be kind of to take that next step as like as a leader to try and get results. I'm kind of getting near to the end of my career, most likely. I'm not that old, but I'm closer to the end than to the beginning at this point. And I was just like kind of looking for that challenge to like, okay, I want to race a little more freely, and just like challenge myself in different ways. So that was the reason I left. The teams were changing anyway. And I'm also at the age where I need to make money. Like I can't be doing this for free like I currently am. Equally in that period, I had started the coaching stuff, so I was kind of prepared. I wanted to be prepared for if something like what happened with the NCL had happened. So luckily, I was responsible in the sense of like I had a backup plan, kind of, which is allowing me to continue racing. Yeah, and then. Yeah, just like the NCL stuff never really got off I mean, I signed the contract, and then it was like 2 days later that they had done their layoffs last year. So I was like, oof. Yeah, I mean, you just have to like, you kind of just have to like, some ways you have to like bury your head in the sand and just be like, okay, well, you have to worry about what you can worry about. Mm-hmm. And I'm not particularly great at doing that. But I think because I had the coaching and the other stuff, like I was okay to just like, okay, I'm just going to crack on and just handle what I can handle. Started, doing the local races at the start of the year on my own equipment, buying my own stuff, investing in the season that I thought I was going to have. And that was like the Redlands team was basically a composite of the guys that wanted to go racing. So it was like me and Bassett and Johnny and Noah and Uli and a couple of others, and we are all just invested in just like the season's going to be how we want the season to be, and hopefully the MCL get it together at some point. And then when that just didn't happen, and we obviously all got fired, I was like driving on I-5 through California, so I was just like I kind of like was just sitting there for a minute and just like, holy, like, is this it? Am I done? I had like a half a second, probably had like 5 minutes where I was like really pity partying myself, like, yeah, well, is that it then? Like, and then, I'd kept in contact with Corey and CJ and less so Justin, but I still had good relationships there, and Corey and I are quite close, so him and CJ were both like, just come back. And so, and then Justin reached out by the end of that drive. So, I mean, I was fortunate in the sense of by the end of that drive, I knew I was coming. I knew where I was going. So it was, I was lucky in that sense. Yeah. So it was like, as much of a difficult and financial hit as it was, like I had good relationships still to kind of fall back on, to just kind of pick up the pieces. And equally, like, I just made the decision of like, okay, what's going to be the simplest, most familiar transition for me to continue doing what I like to do. And like, I like the program that we had raced. The MCL program was going to be pretty similar to what we had been doing, and it just worked out well for kind of like what I could sustain with my family and stuff like that. So yeah, it was a fast transition. In most ways, like there's definitely been some challenges with it. Like Speed Week, I was just like not up to speed on the bike because I just gotten on the bike, and I'm like pretty sensitive with fit stuff, so I was just like really struggling with that. And then besides that, I mean, I think everything else, again, that I could control has gone well. Like Nationals was kind of really disappointing, the crit, because there was just a crash that decided the race. Which really sucked because I felt like I was on it for that. And then, I got crashed at Armed Forces, and that kind of took me out of the rest of Armed Forces. In Tulsa, I had like some broken ribs and was just kind of limping around for a couple of weeks, and I'm just now kind of getting back to full strength. So there's just been a lot of things that this is one of those years where it just isn't going well so far in some ways, but like I'm trying to keep it in good perspective and just like kind of focus on the process, because that's what I enjoy, and I'm still enjoying what I'm doing.
That's what I was going to ask you, because people will hear you be able to laugh about that. This is your job. I mean, you're invested in this. It's very interesting to hear you talk about how you look at a season versus just, amateurs that might be going and racing a couple weekends. What kept you going? You're like, okay, I'm coming back to Blazers, but things aren't going really well. Just focus on your process, as you said. Or are there other things that help you sort of see the big picture, I guess? Because that's got to be tough. You've taken some knocks, and I got to say, I appreciate the vibe that you put out on Instagram is very, I think it might have been during Speedway when you just said like, trying to get in my groove or something like that, and just like maybe next week. And I was like, dude, this guy is just posting real stuff. It's really refreshing to see. But what kind of keeps you in that attitude, I guess?
I've got my ass kicked for a long time in this sport, so this is nothing new. We had like a really like we had such such a good run with Legion. It was so much success that came fairly easily. Which I think is kind of what led to the demise of it in some ways. But so I guess like I know what my ability is, and I know that it will come if I just continue with the process. Like it always will. I know that the fitness is there. So I just can't. I can get frustrated, but like, especially now this year, like it's 100% on me. Like I'm not paid right now to do this. Like hoping next year we'll come back to something that's reasonable, but it's just me doing it more out of the love of it right now. And just like trying to continue to do it, because I know it's a privilege to get to do it at all, especially, with family and the state of the sport. So I just I try to like focus on the good things. I know that when it does come, and it will, because I usually figure it out, that's that kind of like that pursuit of that, like those 1% days of like, okay, I nailed it. Like, I mean, last year was like kind of the nationals weekend. It's like I had an amazing weekend with like when it comes together, and that those moments have to fill the cup up enough to get you through like a year like this. And equally, like, I'm in Vancouver right now for Gastown, so we raced Salt Lake last weekend, which was frustrating again. It was frustrating. It's frustrating, but I could feel the legs coming back. I felt great at Boise, just had that bad crash in the last corner. Like I know that it's the underlying stuff is in place. It just has to click the rest of it with confidence and just the execution of the race. And that was stuff I was doing really good at the start of the year. Like at Redlands, I felt like I was executing the race well. Nationals was executed really well, the crit. So I mean, it wasn't but 2 months ago that I was like right there where I wanted to be. So I just need to, continue to have faith in that process. And I'm investing some money right now to come to Gastown, go to Indy this next weekend, and then I'm flying from Indy to Manhattan Beach. I'm trying to just race, have a full season, like continue to give myself opportunity, and hopefully it will come together. And then I think once it comes together, the confidence comes, and then it gets easier from there. So, and it might not, and then I just have to go out to next year and be like, well, I'm going to do better. Because I still know that my level is enough to where when it, all right, can you hear me? I think my mic officially died, but
all right.
So we're going to lose some audio quality, but we're
that's okay. We've got somebody helping us, and we'll see. This will be a good test for them. Chop this part out, and we'll just restart it right here. It cut off when you were talking about just the training, getting back to your level. I forget exactly what you were saying.
Yeah,
you said, go ahead.
Just kind of following I know that my level is there. Like it's been there all year, and it's just and now it's just about finding some luck and, I mean, just executing well. Equally, kind of with the team, we threw in myself, Noah, and Johnny mid-season. So I've raced with everybody, but no one else has raced with each other as much. And even I hadn't really raced with Noah and Johnny outside of Redlands, so they don't know me that well. I don't know them that well. That's a lot to put together, kind of basically in the middle of the season. So we're there's definitely a lot of learning.
Always, right?
Yeah.
How with your experience, how long do you feel, might not be able to put an exact number on it, but when you're talking about gelling with those guys like Johnny and Noah, and you just don't know, you don't feel each other in the race almost, how long does that usually take till you guys know each other? Oh, I bet he's going right now, and you see the guy going that is gonna, that's just, you feel out your teammates, how you gel. How long do you feel that takes?
I think it depends. It depends on certain people. Honestly, the 6-man Legion squad that won everything, that was almost instant. We figured that one out so fast. And we would kind of refine some things here and there, but it was, I mean, we hit the ground running straight off of COVID and kind of never looked back for 3 years. So with that, it was also a pretty good collection of talent that really fit well together, like skill set wise, where we're kind of a little more of an eclectic group now with the Blazers. So we kind of are having to figure out okay, what's our style of racing? And I think that's where we're struggling a bit, is just figuring out the style and how to use people correctly. So it's coming, and I think we're getting closer, but equally, I mean, we did the Nationals was only me and a few of us, and then at DC, I was hurt after, so we haven't really had a squad at full strength. Noah he got the worst of that crash in Boise, so now he's not at full strength. And I think we do need to be at full strength to really challenge rank, to really put them under pressure. We need everybody on it, because those guys are really, really, really good. And they have been racing together for a very long time. They know exactly how to do it. So I think it will come, but I mean, we just need to also get some time where everyone's actually feeling 100%. Because I think that will make a big difference. I think if we had 100% Noah this last weekend, I think that the results would have shown a lot different, because the way we were trying to utilize me wasn't allowing me to be particularly good in the finish. And equally, like, having hit the ground a few times, we were trying to not have me on the ground anymore for a little bit. So yeah, I think it's just like, yeah, we're just gonna, it's gonna come. I do believe that all these things will shake out. I hope before the end of the season. We have quite a bit of race days left together. I think Noah's going to come back out to Indy. He had to bail on me on this one, to get a little more recovery, so which is fair enough. But yeah, and it's just like a bit of, yeah, you just can't get too frustrated. Like we're all doing this because we like to do it. We love it, and you know, it's just like we can't get too frustrated, but we also have to continue to. We also don't want to lose. Like, losing is not that fun. So.
Rainstorm, man. Yeah, you brought them up. They've maybe you're not surprised. I just, not only are they winning, they're sweeping. It's pretty impressive what they've put together this year. But as you said, they've got some killer riders, and I didn't realize they've all raced together before. So that definitely helped.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically what Best Buddies kind of was before.
Okay.
So, yeah, those guys have been together or I mean, I guess like it was Best Buddies, and then
Was Jordan on their team?
Para, yeah.
Okay.
But like, so they've had like some guys come and go. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, they had like Alfredo and Brian go to NCL for a year and then come back, but all of those guys have raced together. I think it's also one of those things, kind of like what I was saying about the Legion 6-man squad, where they fit well in the way that they're trying to utilize their race style. So, and I think that that's what we're trying to figure out is how do we stop helping them win in some ways? Because we've been riding races to that really set up the way that they win. But like, I mean, full credit to them. Like on Sunday at Salt Lake, like myself and like Robin, like we put everything into like trying to put them under the pump, and they still were second and third. Like, so, I mean, at some level, you just have to like kind of, I've had that sustained success with Legion where we were sweeping every podium, and it was easy. And it was easy in the moment. Then you look back on it, you're like, wow, that was pretty crazy run. And like, that's kind of what they're on right now. And you just kind of have to like appreciate it and just like enjoy the challenge of like figuring it out, as much as just like everyone loved figuring out how to beat Legion. Like, we're going to have to figure out how to beat them. And yeah, it's like, you know, like the challenges, yeah, if it wasn't a challenge, it wouldn't be that fun. So like, you know, when it does come and we do beat them and we do get back to winning, and will I ever have that level of success that we had with Legion? Probably not. Because it wasn't really that, yeah, it was pretty insane. But, you know, like winning a bit here and there again, like, and I know that those days will come, like that will make it more satisfying when it does come.
Mm-hmm. Can you go in more on when you said that you guys were almost racing in a way that helped them win?
Right.
What is that? And so what would be the opposite of that to maybe make it even harder, as you're saying, like you and Robin trying to put them under the pump, but they're still figuring out a way to get on the podium?
Their skill set is they have a lot of really fast guys who are good at fighting in the group and staying together and navigating the bunch. So like the whole like riding the front and keeping the race controlled, even if you think you're going to put them back in the mess and like they think that that's going to tire them out, like it's not, because that is where they thrive. So, you know, like you can't, yeah, we have to like kind of like try to draw them out more. But they have guys to do that too. It's just, I would rather sprint one of them or two of them than their whole 4 or 5 guys, because they're really good at waiting until the last second hitting because they have a lot of speed. Yeah. So we're just trying to figure out how to do it basically. But I think, like I said, like we need at least our team like to be at full strength, which we just haven't gotten the opportunity to have yet.
Cool. You had mentioned having your levels there. It's, you know, working on the execution. As you're building back fitness, what types of things were you doing to get back to your level where you know you can perform? In 2021, you were very volume based, and I'm trying to remember what types of intervals you were doing, but has anything changed since then? Or what would you say like the past 3 months was besides all the races you've been doing?
Yeah, I wouldn't say my style of training has changed really at all. It was again, like I didn't even really take any time off of because the fitness has been there the whole time. Like I've really, that's like been the kind of the frustrating part is like the legs have been there. Like, yeah, okay, had some ribs messed up and my whole body was swollen from slamming the ground at 65k an hour. But once like those injuries kind of went away and I could pedal the bike squarely again, it was just about like kind of doing a little bit of foundation and just like kind of getting to where I could put some power into the pedals. But yeah, I mean, like my process is, I've been coaching myself and doing this long enough to where my process is pretty refined. Like, I'm very proud of how I do this. Like, I know how to get myself fit when it's time. So I just kind of like, it is the same kind of routine. Like, I do a lot of volume in the winter. I make sure the base is there. I did like a little more early season racing this year to kind of try to be good for the start of the season, which I think kind of worked. My target at Redlands was like the last 2 days was the Creighton and Sunset, and I was third. So like I was there, like, okay, it didn't come together for a win, but I was third. Like, fitness was there, and that was kind of the build toward nationals and Joe Martin and stuff like that. Nationals, I was in good shape. I think that road race is just so hard. That road race was so hard that when I missed that break before Brandon went, like, I'm never ever going to be able to do what Brandon does up a climb. So I'm not that kind of rider. I'm not at that level. Like, so I had to be ahead of it, and Noah was the guy that we got ahead of it. So like that was his moment to shine. And I knew when he was going to go, and I tried everything to try to get out of it. But once he went, I was like, yeah, that's my race over right there. So, but it wasn't for a lack of fitness or lack of preparation. I think, I do well with volume. I also just enjoy training. So, and then, I do use the races to kind of sharpen up a lot of the time, which is why I'm trying to do as much racing as I kind of can. But yeah, my process is the same. And, I had this like little 3-week block to recover from Tulsa before kind of what I'm doing now. And that was mostly volume based because I knew I was going to have a lot of racing. So I just want to have that base kind of nice and strong so that I can sustain these race and recovery weeks, because it kind of gets pretty long.
Okay. When you're talking about surviving in the industry, and especially we've hit on like the US cycling scene, for someone who's maybe 20, 21 listening to this, and they're thinking, geez, okay, I can't start a coaching business because I don't have Tyler's, Paul Murray's to lean back on and get people to believe that I know what I'm doing. Should they be planning to have a second job? And let's assume their parents can't pay for stuff, or is it like dive in and go to Europe and figure a way out to make that happen? Or, I mean, what would you recommend for someone who loves the sport, has, they're doing well, that there's a realistic chance of them being a great cyclist, but can they make it here?
Yeah, it's hard. There is such little opportunity now. And I think like you have to be prepared to make sacrifices. So yeah, I mean, I've done it now 2 years of my last like 5 years for free. Both times, like, yeah, now I had the coaching business, but before I was working on ambulance as an EMT because I thought kind of my career was finished before Legion started. So I've always like had that responsibility, I guess, to like have some income. Obviously the more financial support you can get from your family, or, like my wife is a nurse and has a real job and has health insurance that covers us. And yeah, so that makes it possible for me. I think it would be a lot different story if I didn't have her to support me, like support the family. Like, and I have income that's like helpful and sustainable, but like it would be way more stressful trying to do it if I was alone. Yeah, I think like it is difficult, especially the road scene right now, but I think even gravel, it's going to be coming for that industry soon too, because it's kind of getting pretty top heavy with like the guys that are really making money, and these races are expensive to go to. I mean, like, like just since, I bet it's almost double to run a crit program from when we started in like 19 and 21 to now. Like, I'm almost sure that it's probably at least like 30 or 40% more expensive. So getting to races is expensive, and it is getting hard. I think like, yeah, if you have the ability to go to Europe and and send it and try and establish yourself, then that's awesome. But it's also just the way the landscape of the sport has changed so much. Like if you're like 21 or 22, like I know I talk to some of these guys and they're like, yeah, I feel like I'm too old. And I'm like, that's true. The sad part is it's kind of true. And like I remember talking with Luke, Lane Purdy last year before he had his quick step thing, and he was stressing, and he was 20. And I'm just like,
wow.
And he wasn't, I don't know how much he was really letting on, how stressed he was, but he was, he's a pretty supremely confident person. And I was never worried about him, but like, he felt the pressure a bit of like, okay, I'm not a second year under 23 anymore. Like, yeah, it's just it's difficult, and it's super competitive at those younger ages now. So you kind of have to like be ready to just like jump at any opportunity. But then I think the other thing is, if you do fight long enough and you have the ability and you just continue to push and you don't give up, like you can knock the doors down eventually. And like, I think that's where I've kind of like been able to survive in some ways. It's like, I just haven't ever, yes, I have like good results and a nice career and good experience and good relationships, which obviously at the end of the day, like really helps, but I also haven't ever really given up and stopped. And I think as long as I don't do that, I'll be able to, at some level, stay in it. It's just like, eventually, like I'm sure that I'll get tired and frustrated too, and just be ready for the next thing at some point.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate your candor on that, because I think a lot of people would be surprised when you say, hey, I've raced 2 years and haven't been paid. I think everyone would assume everyone on Blazers is getting paid, and it's just.
Well, they would have like, in full credit to them, like the guys that were on the team at the start of the year, I believe are paid. It's just like us guys coming in April, like
right.
We kind of got what we were supposed to do. Like their budget was set, and I can't ask them to, I'd rather go to the races and figure out the money on the back end, like personally, because I'm doing it to race my bike, not because I'm getting rich. So I'd rather go to more races, and just like next year they'll, I have full faith. Justin and Corey have always taken care of me, and I know that they will do their best to do it again. So for me, it's just an investment in the future. And just like, this year we're racing and we're having as much fun as I can, and we'll reevaluate beyond that.
I think it's super smart investing in yourself, and it's not always something everybody's willing to do.
Nice.
Got to put up the dough to get paid down the road. So
yeah, it's frustrating because you hear that I'm almost 30 and I've been getting told that since I was 20, and sometimes you're like, okay, when is it going to come back around? Because I don't think it ever really does, but at the same time, like you're racing your bike. It's that's like I say it a lot. It's privilege. It's not like, if I was investing in myself to go do like an office job, I would be a lot more upset about it. But it feels like it's worth it still. So as long as it feels like it's worth it, I'll continue.
Cool. That's all. I hope to keep seeing you out there for a while, even though you think you're old. I was like, wait a minute, isn't he only 30?
Yeah, 29. I'm holding off on the 30s for as long as I can.
Okay.
It's
Maybe
coming.
That's
It's
age.
coming.
I think I looked.
No, race age on 30, but hey, we're not gonna
okay.
No.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
One, you brought up the fit stuff on the bike, kind of changing gears here real quick. What is it when you get a new bike or a new setup? What do you find the hardest to dial in, or what are you still kind of like fiddling with that took some time to feel like, okay, this is my bike?
I'm still fiddling. I just changed something this last weekend. I think
go through that. People love this stuff, so go through that process.
Yeah.
You get the bike. Is it like stock, or do they have
different components? So CJ is kind of like one of the mechanics for the whole organization, and he knows my fit pretty well. So he built the bike up like, I think like, well, I found out I was coming on Monday evening, and I think by like Tuesday afternoon I had a bike. I think like getting the setback and seat height. And like I had to change pedals. Changing pedals. The geometry is just different. I was going from Avenge to the Canyon, so it was just like everything is a little different, and I'm so picky about it. And equally, I don't think I did a particularly good job reading my tape measure. In hindsight, But I was also like, but I was equally, I was like, okay, well, I have to try everything or I have to change everything. I might as well try a few things I've been wanting to try. So I did try a few things that just was a disaster.
Mm.
It only took me like 2 weeks probably to get it pretty good. Yeah, I'd say like 2 weeks to get it pretty good. I'm still, like I said, I'm still fine tuning stuff. So like I just changed from, I think when they built it, it was like a 120 negative. It was 120 negative 10, and then I went to like a 120 negative 6 with less stack, and then I went to a 130 negative 6, and now I'm at a 130 negative 10. So like I'm still kind of messing with it, and just like now I'm in the real refining it of just like trying some different stuff to try to be more comfortable. But yeah, I mean, like just like changing pedal systems and stuff like that. Like you have like, like a couple mil different in stack height on the pedals, and yeah, it's just like all that stuff is not something you want to be doing in April, basically. That's something you want to be doing in December. So
yeah,
that was definitely a challenge.
Did you change pedals because the team had different pedals, or you just decided?
Yeah,
to change
so we were on Wahoo with NCL, with So Speedplay, and then Time with the Blazers. So, yeah, it was it was a change. It's just a change. It's not even when at the end of last year I went from Shimano pedals to the Wahoos, and I had to deal with the same thing. So I felt like I was actually changing stuff and then I went from a tarmac back to my bench to Canyon. So it was just a constant change where I'm like probably the most comfortable I felt now, but probably I'm like, I feel like every time I would get it pretty close, like I would have to change something else. So, yeah, that's been a bit of a challenge. I'm in a pretty good place with it now, but yeah, like I said, I'm still trying out some new stuff.
It always amazes me how such little changes can have such a big result. It's like a few millimeters, a little different angle on the set. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
My last question for you, unless there's anything else you want to hit on, is you had used the word a few times, execution. And I think that I'm trying from the best way to put this in the words of, we might have talked about this actually when we were talking about Zwift stuff back in the day. You could ride through people obviously on Zwift. It was watts. We had a great reel that people loved of like, I look in the mirror if I'm lean and I want more watts. And the execution on race day, though, there's so many other factors going on. It's how do you look at how much is watts and fitness and how much is racecraft and executing that racecraft on race day?
I think like you have to have the fitness and the watts. And I think when you know that you have it, then that other execution is easier to come by because you have more confidence. But I think on race day, at the end of the day, like that is probably like just your execution, your racecraft, you being confident in what you're doing and in the plan in your team, like that is far more important than having the watts, especially in like crit racing. Because we're not going up big climbs. Like it really is very difficult to make a difference just based on pure strength. I think like probably pure strength, I'm one of the strongest guys, but I'm not winning. So like I'm obviously not executing in a way to allow myself to use those watts sometimes. Which has been like, I think the more frustrating bit of the season is, also I've been trying to ride a different role than I think I normally would. So that's been tough, and I'm trying to figure out how to execute and just figure out my process of getting results again. So because it's just a different way for me of racing this year.
Can you go in on that more for people that don't know how you raced before versus now? How has that changed? Like your role of being the leader or trying to win more?
Yeah, I think I started the year trying to sprint more, trying to be like the sprinter. And it was going okay. Like I said, like nationals, I think I executed it really well. It was just some bad luck. But that's not who I am as a rider. I'm not that good at taking the risks. Not that good at the fighting in the end. It's not my strength. So I'm an aggressive rider. I like to make the race really hard and race forward. And that's my favorite way of racing. Is what I like doing. Like I get 10 minutes into a crit and I'm like, okay, well I think I'll just like, start attacking now. Like at Boise, I was like 7 minutes in and I was solo, and Luke and I were kind of helping each other out there, and he like chased me down just to tell me to stop being an idiot. So I'm like, I'm having fun. Like, this is what I like to do. So like, yeah, I think like now we're trying to figure out my role within this team again too. Because we have Corey, who is a good sprinter. We have Noah, who's similar to me, but a little bit better probably in the fighting. So we're just trying to figure out, but we can't like sit there and just run lead outs like we did on Legion because we don't have the personnel like that. So we're just, those are the things we're figuring out. And I just have to figure out again, like how to race a race for me to be successful. Like, I mean, Salt Lake, the second day, like I raced what I felt like was a really good race, and it just didn't like come off with the results at the end. But I was actually like fairly proud of the race still. Like I felt good. I had a great time. Like I raced hard, left it out there. So it was a little bit about like also just like taking the little micro victories and enjoying that process on the way to getting the big results, which when those come, then you just be like, oh, fine. And then that's what you do it for, or that's what I do it for.
That's huge to hear, the micro victories. Those are easy to overlook, I think, especially as riders are trying to climb the ladder of maybe trying to get their Cat 1, and you go travel somewhere for 5 hours, you get no upgrade points, and sometimes it's hard to see those little positives. So I think for people to hear you saying that and seeing those is massive. Kind of a good a reminder to us all.
Yeah.
What's any other comments on living a million lives since 2021 or surviving in the industry that you want to pass along to people before you get ready for Gastown tonight? Is it tonight?
No, tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
Yeah. I don't know. I think like it kind of just goes, it's just about enjoying the process and like staying in love with it and figuring out ways to stay in love with the sport and in love with the process. And I think as long as you can do that, the other stuff comes eventually. Or it will always feel worthwhile. And I think like, it's just like once that worthwhileness goes away for me, that will be when it's time for me to move on to the next thing. But yeah, I mean, you have to keep a good perspective because it's just getting really hard to be quote unquote professional in America. So you have to be resilient and take the micro victories, right? Like those little things.
So when the NCL cratered and you were saying before, you're like, okay, I'm asking myself, is this it? What did you focus on? What was the love? Where are you like, okay, I actually still want to keep doing this? What you kind of talked about, following your process, but was there something that stuck out that you're like, okay, I'm not done with this. I gotta, and maybe you said it happened so quick. Maybe there wasn't even time to think of that because you're talking to Corey and
I still love the challenge of getting better. And I know that that's like a little bit of what I was wanting to do was like, okay, I want a different role of like trying to do sprints and trying to win in different ways and challenge myself. And like that challenge of getting better is really what drives me. It's what I enjoy. I enjoy trying some different strategies, trying different training. And I know that there's more left and I just don't feel like I'm done and I don't feel like I've hit my maximum potential yet still. Maybe I have results wise, but like as a rider, I'm still getting better, I think. So I think like as long as that hunger is there to continue to push, then like I just don't feel like I've like squeezed all the juice out yet. So that was where I was like, okay, well, I'm going to figure out how to make the best of this for this year. And, going back to basically my home with the WR Depot family was what allowed me to do that and made the most sense. So here I am. And I think like, for next year, it will be, it'll be easier because we'll just have like less pivoting to do mid-season for sure.
Lord willing. Man, I appreciate this. This was awesome to catch up. And what's the best way if people are interested in coaching? How should they reach out to you? We'll post your Instagram handle.
My Instagram is great. That's how a lot of people. If you just send me a DM, and I can set up stuff from there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Everybody, good luck with your training and racing. Tyler, thanks again, man, for coming back. And we'll have to maybe do a 2026 or 2025 catch up and see what's changed as you continue to live a million lives in a short period of time.
2026 could be an interesting year. For sure. Next year I'm going to keep going, and then I feel like I have to race out to my age 30, and then yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. If I could, I mean, I would go until I'm 40 if I get the opportunity, but we'll just see how long I can keep going for sure.
If you had to pivot, would you try to pivot into coaching, or do you want to go back to the doing the ambulance field? Or
No, I don't want to go back to the ambulance field.
okay,
Yeah, no, the coaching thing is enjoyable. I would, yeah, I enjoy it. We'll see. I'm kind of just like, I have that as like a good foundation right now to kind of allow me to have freedom to figure out what I want to do beyond that. Yeah, we'll see. Right now, I'm just getting our team successful again, and yeah, then we'll figure it out after that.
one day at a time.
One day at a time. Yeah, I'm just gonna try not to get on the ground more this year. That'll be.
We'll be watching, man. Fingers
helpful.
crossed. That's you guys are
Yeah.
crazy though. It's like these races. I'm like, oh my god.
Oh, I got the feed helmet. They were really generous in helping me out, kind of in that transition period. And so I've been an awesome sponsor, but I've been blowing up helmets like left, right, and center. Luckily, I haven't had any like head injuries beyond just exploding the helmets. But they were like, "Can you just go through helmets this frequently?" I'm like, "No, this isn't normal. This isn't normal.
Just me this year.
Try and get some life out of this new helmet, and have some fun and hopefully get some wins."
No more new helmets.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and cut.